record on this computer. Okay, so we're officially recording. Welcome to Ask Me Anything Live. Today is February 8th. What questions can I support you with?
Well, I'm happy to go. I work for a company called Brand Builders Group. I'm the director of operations. We're in Nashville, Tennessee. We formed in 2018, and we recently got forwarded I don't know if I just said, but we're in Nashville, Tennessee, but I recently got forwarded an Instagram account that from another person who lives here in Nashville, and she and her business partner have started an organization that they started it in 2020, and it's called Brand Builders, not Brand Builders Group, here in Nashville, and they're using our exact identical brand colors and some of our branding. They registered their business in Utah.
Okay.
So we don't really know what to do.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So a couple things. One, do you have any, so the name of your company is Brand Builders Group.
Correct.
Right? And you're based in Tennessee. Is that where you're registered?
That is where our business is registered. That's correct.
What does your online presence look like? Where do you do business? Is it national? Is it international? Tell me a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, it's international. We're an international personal branding firm. We have clients from all over the world. We have celebrity clients, and we're fairly well known in the space simply because of some of our clients and how, they've used us. I should also point out that one of the people who started this business that I'm referring to, this other business, is actually in our CRM and has been contacted by as a potential client. And so she's received emails from us. Yeah. She definitely is aware of us.
Yeah.
She is a bit of a celebrity herself. So this brand builders thing that she started is also personal branding. It seems to be specifically geared towards women only. And she is like an HGTV kind of star person. That's how she kind of became. So she also has a voice and has influence.
Got it. When did you guys form your company? How long have you been around?
I think legally it was either the very end of May or the beginning of June of 2018.
Okay, so a couple years. What, do they have a website? I'm just looking online.
So
I assume Brand Builders Group is your website. If you want to pop it, you can either pop it into the chat to me, like private chat or something, and I can just open it and take a quick peek. Yeah, because what you're talking about, I mean, basically, the question, and the next question is, do you have any federal trademarks? Like, do you have any IP that's protected when it comes to branding or your business name?
We do not. And now that has become a thing where we're now discussing that we need to do that. Yeah.
Got it.
So
okay.
So that one I just sent you is the Brand Builders little retreat thing.
Okay.
And that bluish green color, that is our brand. I mean, clear as day, that's our brand colors on.
And is that, like, when you talk about the extent of what has either been copied or duplicated, we're talking about your business name, colors, is there anything else that you've noticed? Like, have they swiped copy or done anything else that appears to imitate your systems or anything in your business?
Mostly they're using verbiage that sounds similar to ours, but that's not necessarily surprising to me because they use words like monetize and optimize, and that's just standard branding. That is about you're monetizing your voice basically. And so I don't necessarily, I mean, if they've copied other things, I wouldn't be surprised if they're copying that as well. But I also wouldn't say that we have owned any kind of proprietary, anything over the word maximize, so.
Right. No, I didn't know if like they'd taken a landing, like sometimes when you see copying, you see like they'll just swipe whole sections of your website or a landing page or sales language or something. So, a couple things. One is that you may want to look into whether a trademark registration would be a fit for your business, right? Okay. If because you can, even without a registration though, let's be clear, like you could probably have an attorney look at this, write a letter on your behalf, like do some analysis to determine whether or not there is a viable claim for, some type of infringement, which there may be. The fact that she's inside your CRM, that there's already kind of a pre-established connection to your business, I think helps your side of the story a bit, right?
Okay.
So the thing I can do, because what you'll want to do is talk with somebody who does a lot of infringement work and a lot of IP defense and let me just I'll pop a referral into the chat. Let me just pull up my email, because I would recommend, so you're in Tennessee, when it comes to IP, especially when you're using it on the internet, it's interstate, it's international, right? You can work with IP lawyers around the nation. Her name is Nancy, and she'd be a great first stop to have a consultation, take a look at what you're talking about, do a comparison, and then talk about whether or not she could either draft a letter. The thing about drafting a letter, and this is good for anybody on this call or anybody who watches the recording, is you'll often hear people say like, oh, just send a cease and desist, just send a takedown notice. And while that often is a good solution, you want to have some help in looking at that potential scenario in the context of other options and potential outcomes. What people don't often understand is if you allege infringement, you can open the door to actually responding to a lawsuit. If somebody claims they're not infringing you, they can do what's called a declaratory action. So you could potentially end up defending a declaratory action in Utah, where they're based, where they're going to ask the courts to say, no, we're not infringing. This is, so people are not often aware that alleging infringement can actually result in defending a declaratory action if somebody's going to take the position that no, they're not infringing. So you just have to really think through your strategy, have somebody help you, kind of assess the individual or the company that's doing the infringement. And, sometimes there's things that we just don't know, but the questions that I would walk a potential client through is like, what do you know about their funding? What do you know about whether they have legal support built into their business? What do you know about, whether they're likely to want to defend against something like this? If you know the individuals involved, it can be easier to kind of get into the mindset of what they're probably going to do, right? You can't always predict, obviously, but if you know something about their relative level of sophistication, like there are, clients that I've helped where you can just tell by looking at the business or the online branding, like they're probably not super sophisticated. They're not likely to, and I don't mean sophisticated in that they're ignorant, but their business is just not at the level where they've got like built-in legal support, or they're likely to want to spend money on that, right?
Right.
So yeah, there's just some things to think about, and then there could be some different options available to you. But if you're going to send a letter, you also have to be prepared to file a lawsuit, right?
Okay.
So you'd want somebody who does that, supporting you with that process. And actually, just so I don't take up any additional time, since we've got other people on the call, Isla, why don't you, and I think you've emailed me before just about the Ask Me Anything session, pop back into my inbox and just remind me to respond and send you that referral, and I'll do that once I get off the call.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Good. You're welcome. Great question. All right. Welcome to Heather and Kathleen, and I see Dr. Denise and Troika. So you're welcome if you've got a question, and Kathleen's in Seattle. Awesome. Yeah, Heather, if you've got a question.
I have two. The first one is I'm an accountant, financial advisor, and of course I have to be careful with disclosures and that. And I just did a lead magnet booklet that I'm going to be giving out. And I did put a legal disclaimer at the front, this is just for educational purposes. Does it have to be at the front, or can I put it at the end?
Oh, good question. So can I ask you quickly about your business?
Yeah, sure.
So my question is, so you're a financial advisor, right? Financial services world?
Yeah, I'm not giving people advice on what to invest in or specific advice. I'm educating them on how to build their wealth by, like, how to pay down debt, how to get control of the finances.
But you're But your main, like you're a licensed professional, right? You've got a license attached to what you do, CPA. Okay. So, for anybody that's licensed, I mean, there's two questions that I ask them, like, especially if you're getting into lead magnets and education online, is that something that's directly related to your professional services business? Or is it that you're literally going to create, or you are creating, a second business, which is an online information or education-based business? So the question really becomes, are you providing services as a licensed CPA, or are you doing it as an educator, course creator, digital content, etc.?
Yeah, I don't actually do accounting or investments anymore. I do handle personal insurance in Nova Scotia only, but no, it's just I'm becoming a coach, and that is what I'm doing.
Okay. So if you're in Nova Scotia, right? You're up in Canada?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, like, the licensing rules, obviously, that exist in Canada. For anybody that's a licensed professional, first stop is to make sure you really understand those rules. The risk of, for a lot of professionals, the risk of going into the online information education space or coaching consulting space when you're doing that kind of separate and apart from your primary profession is you always have to examine, is what I'm doing consistent with this first, professional license, professional practice, or is it separate and apart from? If it's separate and apart from, and often, being in the latter world can put your primary licensure at risk, right? For a lot of people. So for example, take somebody who's in the medical world. They're a doctor, they're a nutritionist, they're, whatever. They live in the world of helping support people's physical bodies. If they're licensed and then they go online and they start a coaching practice and they haven't actually set up like two businesses where professional practice and professional services lives over here and their online information education, coaching, consulting business lives over here, their licensure can be at risk. Primarily because most professional licenses don't allow you to go interstate, or in your instance, and I'm not sure again how it works in Canada, don't allow you to cross provincial borders, right? Or international services even. So that's where you'd want to get really clear about the very first thing that for most licensed professionals I advise, which is actually setting up a formal second business with its own infrastructure. So in the States, that would, sorry, I can hear my kiddos freaking out. That would look like an LLC, a C Corp, something that actually.
In Canada, it's for a separate business. You don't have to be incorporated, but we don't have the LLCs.
I know you guys don't have the LLCs.
We just have sole proprietorships, partnerships, corporations, and then C-level corporations.
Sweetie pie, mommy's on a. Oh, okay, come here. Listen, mommy's on a call. Can you go? Aiden's supposed to be in school. Is he not in school? The joy of parenting two small children and working at the same time. Oh, I might have to pause. We'll see how this works out, but I might have to pause. 1 second.
Yep, go ahead.
Oh my gosh, my little people, they're so much fun.
Oh, they're awesome.
I know. My 8-year-old is
only
in
little so long.
I know. And we just, bless their hearts, we just spent a weekend in a couples like online workshop. So these two little people have already had to defend for themselves for basically fend for themselves for like 2 days straight, which took a lot of effort for them. They're a little worn out today.
So I don't think that's going to be an issue because I don't have an accounting business now anymore.
Got it. So, okay.
Yeah,
so
like I closed all that down. I haven't been doing it for like 5 years.
Got it. Okay. So long as you're not intending to keep like that licensure current and actually be working from that.
Well, no, the CPA designation, I'm keeping it. I pay the fees and stuff, but it's not.
Okay.
And I used to be on the board, and I don't recall anything about you being limited as to where you could do. It's just like I can't go and do taxes in the US unless, it's US licensing sort of thing. But no, I don't think there's any problem with that.
Okay. So, for any jurisdiction, right, people have to sort that out within their own licensing rules, business formation, setup, etc. But in regards to, I can talk to you a bit about like the digital downloads, having an online website, what should be up there when you're talking, especially about the financial world and educating people, right? A disclaimer definitely on the download itself, but also on your website. So
I have one on the website.
You've got one on the website.
The website crashed, and I looked at it, and it's like, holy crap, where is it? So I just kind of copied it and put a button so it's there.
Got it. Yeah. So for disclaimers, especially in the financial world, and are your customers individuals? Is it business? Like, are they small businesses?
I'm just getting started. I actually don't have any customers yet online, but it's going to be likely individuals.
Got it. Okay. Because especially if you're doing business cross-border into the US, the FTC really wants to see if somebody's talking about sales, income, increasing earnings, anything like this, you would want a specific earnings and income disclaimer related to your work. If that's not what you're doing and it's more about systems and money management and, stuff like that, it may be that specific disclaimer wouldn't apply to your services, but there are various disclaimers that you may need depending on what you're doing. Obviously, privacy policy, right? If you're collecting data, there's a digital download or courses or something that you're selling, you want a solid privacy policy. If you're international into European countries, right, you'd want it compliant with the GDPR. Lots of other countries are moving that direction anyways. And then, hopefully
privacy mainly has to be on the website and for email collection.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. So for like, it's a little booklet, like a 12-page booklet.
Right. But they're getting it through a website. Is that correct? Like they opt in to a database?
It's basically, if you sign up for my email, you can get this as a bonus. And it's worded that way because I don't want them to be like, oh, I want the booklet, but because I know how the GDPR works, you have to have it. If you're saying, hey, if you sign up for this, I'll give you a bonus, not you can have my book if you sign up for my email. I know it's a little fiddly.
Yeah. Well, and that may not really get you into the compliance zone of the GDPR. If you make something available, you have to give people the option of just getting the thing or also signing up for your email list. That said, the likelihood of them coming after a small business, it's pretty low unless you get reported by somebody who's really savvy on the GDPR. Even that simple, even somebody with just a single landing page and a newsletter opt-in or anything else, you need to have a privacy policy up. But especially if you've got, digital downloads, you're doing anything in the online space that involves collecting data of any kind, even without an email opt-in, and you've just got Google Analytics turned on your website, you need a privacy policy. So it's very strict. That's the one thing that's required by law for any business that's collecting basically any kind of data. Yeah. And then terms and conditions, website terms and conditions are your general ground rules. That's what lets people know, here's what to expect when you visit my site. You're going to have disclaimers built into that. You're going to have limitations of liability specific to what you do, right? So that's kind of the foundational piece. Privacy policy is all about collecting data. And then if you're selling things, if you're either like, for example, selling your coaching, selling a pre-recorded course, selling digital downloads that are certain resources, right? You want terms of purchase that are specific to those items. So that's a comprehensive look at what, people do in the online space. And then specific to your booklet, yes, a disclaimer inside the booklet would be great. I mean, I don't know how it's designed. If you can place it up front, that's better. But at the very minimum, you should have it somewhere in the booklet where it's not small print, it's not buried where they have to go hunting for it. You want it to be obvious that there's a disclaimer.
Yeah. Yeah. I figured just moving it a few pages in, even because I don't want it to be the first thing that they see.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and like I said, you can play with design, even if you put it like, title page. I'm not sure if with a 12-page booklet what all is in the front, but you could put it near the bottom of one of the early pages where it's not like the main thing, but it's definitely there.
Okay, but it still qualifies as long as it's in there and it's easily visible.
Totally. Where people get into problem is if it's really buried, like it's a super dense book or something, and it's in the back and it's in small print, and they just didn't even know it was there, right? You want to avoid that.
You kind of made me wonder, because I just set up an email landing page with ConvertKit, and I'm wondering, because they didn't ask me for my privacy policy link. So, cookies. Mm-hmm. Because I did the website myself. Mm-hmm. So as far as I know, I'm not collecting cookies, because I never set anything up to collect cookies. So is there anything there I need to be worried about? Because if you don't know how to set it up, you can't be really collecting them.
Depends. What platform are you using? Is it WordPress? Is it like
it's WordPress.
Square Pages? It's WordPress. Yeah. So WordPress, you usually do have to turn on some functionality, right? You would plug in Google Analytics. There might be some other plugins that function like Google Analytics. But you want that functionality in your website. Like, I wouldn't want somebody to be an online business for long without being able to collect information about who's visiting their site, how's traffic getting there, if you're running any campaigns on Facebook or even via email or whatever. Like, you want ways to track who's coming to visit your business online. That's literally, in the real, like the online real world of business. You'd be behind a desk at your shop, and you'd see who's coming and going, and you'd understand a bit more about who's being attracted to your business. And in the online world, we have to have other ways of doing that. So
the Google Analytics, I would need a cookie.
Totally. Yeah. Well, and yes, because Google definitely, there's a lot of functionality that's happening inside of Google. I'm going to post some links for you and anybody else who might find this helpful. I've got a free training on the GDPR, and it also goes into some privacy stuff. I'll pop some links into the chat. I'm also going to share with you a link to my website protection package workshop. So last year I offered the workshop, and I have lots of Canadians that I serve through that workshop. I did several rounds of it, and it's at a significant discount because I delivered it in workshop format, which meant a whole group of people got together. We did a live training on, multiple times, but like on a Saturday morning, and just went for 4 or 5 hours. The recording's there, the template documents are there. The thing that's different about the way that I deliver documents and help support online businesses that really doesn't exist in, the space of entrepreneurs that I serve is it's not just about having the documents. It's about having the education around best practices, around what goes wrong in the online world. Or it's a lot more education about issues that come up being an online business owner and what to do about them and what resources are available for that. And so think of it as what I tell people is it's like an online business leadership course from a legal perspective. You're going to know a lot more about being online and being in business, and you're going to have the legal documents to support and protect your business. So let me pop the free resources, which includes my GDPR report. That's going to help people understand a bit more about the GDPR. I did then a Facebook Live training, and then it cut off at the end, so I apologize. There's a second little 3-minute video wrap up. But there's also a free cookies consent generator that I have shared with a lot of people. You could probably do it on your own, figure it out and plug it into your site. Here is the link to that. So the function and the role of the cookies consent notice, because probably everybody on this call remembers 5-6 years ago when they started popping up. You'd especially see them on news sites, any site that really conglomerates resources. And it's because you need to achieve constructive notice. People need to be aware that you have legal policies on your site. And there's something that you've probably heard of, click wrap, maybe you've heard of browse wrap. In the legal world, browse wrap, which is where somebody literally has to go browsing to find your policies, there's concern that does not achieve constructive notice. So just having your footer link, your footer links in the menu that say terms and conditions, privacy policy, income and earnings disclaimer, may not be enough from the standpoint of notifying your website visitors that your policies are there. And so that's why cookie consent notices evolved, is that they popped up in order to achieve constructive notice, where somebody literally couldn't visit your site without being a little bit annoyed at first. People are very used to them now. So I joke, like, get over it. Some people are still really concerned with user experience. But our minds have also changed as consumers. All of us consume information online. We understand, like, businesses are doing that because they're trying to comply with legal rules, because they're trying to notify people of their policies. So don't be afraid to use those pop-ups on your site, because you do want to achieve constructive notice. And the best pop-ups, yes, they might mention a cookies policy because that's about data collection and stuff that gets tracked on the user side. But you also want to point them in the direction of sorry, I've got wild hair this morning.
I tied mine up.
I know. I brushed my hair and it still looks like I just climbed out of bed. So either the privacy policy or both the privacy policy and your terms and conditions. And so there are ways, and I go through my website training course, about all of this stuff and how to do it the right way, but you have to be aware of these legal issues and that you actually need to achieve constructive notice for people to understand that there are terms on your site.
Okay, you said the best cookies and then you got distracted. So the best cookies include something about the terms and conditions, or was that what you're getting to?
The best cookies. So what I said is the best cookies pop-up notices have both, like, information that says cookies are on this site, but they also link to the privacy policy or both the privacy policy and the terms and conditions. It's not just about the cookies notice. And the cookies notice often lives inside of the privacy policy. So some people, I've seen notifications that say this website uses cookies, but they don't direct people anywhere to actually go check out the privacy policy. That's not very helpful. You want people to have the chance to click through to actually read the policy, get access to it, decide whether they want to do business with your site.
Okay.
So that free cookies generator is there in the chat as well.
And I was told by someone that there is a new compliance thing where websites have to be compliant for disabled people. Like they can't, so that, have you heard of this?
This is evolving. Yeah, so under the ADA, which is a federal level regulation in the states, you do want to aim towards website compliance. It's an evolving area of law right now. So what we are noticing is that now, most typically, if your business employs 15 people or more, you definitely want to be in compliance. But there are some cases popping up where small businesses belonging to, a solo entrepreneur, small teams are being flagged and lawsuits are being brought against those businesses for not making their website compliant. So my advice to most people is, if you're in the process of building out a new site, especially if you're going to invest in redoing a website, look into compliance, even if you're a very small business, because, all of us, as much as possible, should be doing what we can to, support those with disabilities who might want to use our sites. And so, for example, I have a podcast, right? Well, a hearing impaired person might not be able to click through and receive any benefit from that. So I've started creating transcripts of every single podcast and having those posted along with the audio version of the podcast, right? So I'm not fully compliant, but I'm making steps towards compliance so that as much as possible as I, can invest in my website, and especially if I redo it, I've built in some functionality that will support that. If you're an organization of 15 people or more, you definitely want to be on board and be compliant.
Okay. Are you planning to do any trainings on that as well?
I do a lot of education just on these types of calls. A lot of the people that I support they're not yet required to comply with that law, because I'm mostly in the business of supporting information entrepreneurs that are running small teams or are solos themselves. And so it's like I don't work with larger, more established companies, even small businesses.
So where I'm solopreneur, I don't need to worry about it right now, but I should just keep it in mind.
You should keep it in mind and work towards compliance, definitely, because like I said, it is a changing area of law, and we are seeing more issues pop up around people not being compliant.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. All right. Anybody else? I know that was a lot of information. And I will, Heather, if you're interested in anybody else, I'm going to pop, I don't share this, like somebody can't come to my site and just access this because there's no links available, but this is kind of the back end link to the recording of that workshop. If people are interested in going through my website protection package workshop, there's a lot of value there, and it's less than 50% of what it normally costs for somebody to get inside that bundle and get the support through my normal trainings. So I just popped that into the website. Yeah, and that, to be clear, if somebody selects into that, I have both a US version of the documents and a Canadian version of the documents there. So for my Canada friends. All right, Dr. Denise or anybody else, any questions? I see Kathleen has a hand up.
Yes, I was going to say that I am a side point. This has to relate to the disability thing. Mm-hmm. I was a board member on a public computer lab in Seattle, which, sad to say, the agency that was promoting us decided not to renew our contract after 20 years.
Oh, shoot.
It's not really something I want to go into publicly, but it's really irritating. And they really got away with it because of COVID. Because it was really hard for us. They weren't communicating with us very well last year at all.
Yeah, that was a tough year for a lot of organizations.
Communicate with us before they made the final decision. They just told us the final decision.
Bummer. Kathleen, is there a question that I can support you with today?
I wanted to say that I understand, to me, accessibility is a big issue. Mm-hmm. I'm visually impaired. I also have some hearing issues. And for example, I use captions. I'm just making this known to you. There's supposed to be a feature that you can access in Zoom for captions.
Oh, cool.
And I don't think it's something that I have to, as I understand it, it would be something that you would have to
set up.
Have to buy a higher it's part of the paying version.
Got it. I see.
I don't know exactly how it works, and I'm just mentioning that you're not the only. I always mention it to anybody.
I'll check that out. I'm betting. Yeah, no, I'm betting that's in setting. I mean, that's interesting if it has the ability to do.
I came across it like 2 months ago, because I searched.
Yeah.
I did a Google on it and I came across it.
Well, and my question is, I wonder if it does it live or if it's able to create the captions once you, for example, save the recording, if you're going to go post the recording.
I'm not exactly sure.
I'm guessing.
Know is they said I sent an email back, and the company it's like they're contracting out to a smaller company. So that's why they said we have to charge for it because we're a small.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's an after the fact.
Like YouTube does, where it's supposedly automatic. But even YouTube now changed their policy on how they do. They don't really save the chat It's complicated when you do a live YouTube now. It's like they will show captioning, but then they will redo it for when someone comes afterward. I don't get it. I don't see why that would make any sense. So my thing is, I don't expect smaller business people to, have someone doing it live for them.
Yeah.
But I do want them to have the access so they can go back and edit what the computer does. Because you know what happens either with your accent or if you're doing technical
right.
words, They mess it up. The computer will give you really weird things sometimes.
It does do that. Well, thanks for that input, Kathleen. Those are good resources to remember. Dr. Denise, I know you had a question as well. Do you want to? There we go.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for this opportunity. And just to piggyback on what she said, it's live. You just go into your online settings.
Oh, got it. And it'll happen live. Okay. Well, that's really good to know. I'll have to go experiment with that. Yeah. Nice.
Yes. So I have a couple quick questions.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is, I'm not a medical professional. How often should I have that, or how many places should I have that in digital or printed products?
So say that again. You're not a medical professional?
Correct.
You're not a medical. Tell me a minute about your work.
So I help women shift their mindsets to take a positive approach to their wellness journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so I speak a lot on my experience, of course. And I often say, especially when I do my lives, that I'm not a medical professional, even though I may touch on mental health and things like that, but it's from a place of experience and all of the wealth of information I have researched.
Right. Yes. Absolutely.
So I do verbally make the disclaimer when I'm live, but in terms of digital informational products, how often should it be in that material?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a couple things about this, right? And the fact that you're not a medical professional, I mean, it's fine. I don't know if you label yourself like as a coach, a consultant, right? Like what your title is. The most important thing from the standpoint of the consumer of the services is clarity, right? And so we really, for purposes of like even what I do, right? These sessions are informational. I mean, I probably should have kicked it off, although I normally do, with the fact that although I'm an attorney, right, I don't practice law in Tennessee or New York. I'm Washington based, but this is informational. And it's often, you'll even hear me in the phrasing like, oh, if it was a potential client I was consulting with, these are the kinds of things I would address, or this is the kind of thing I would recommend that they look into. So much of what we do really depends on creating that clarity in the mind of people who are consuming our services. And so what you don't want to have happen is somebody misunderstand and think that they're getting medical or nutritional advice or psychotherapy when they're not getting any of those things, right? And so the answer is really you can't say it too much. You can't disclose it too much. I mean, be as clear as possible. You also don't have to go overboard, especially if what you do, most people would understand as not like they're not in a doctor-patient relationship, right? And I see that you are, you do have doctor in front of your name. So this is also going to be a little extra important for you because, like, I don't know what your training is in.
On the spiritual side.
On the spiritual side.
PhD, yes, I'm a non-medical PhD.
Okay. So yeah, so for you, especially if you're using doctor in your branding, etc., is going to be important to make sure that people know it's not on the medical side, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So, but it's obviously a great credential to have, and people shouldn't be afraid of using that in their branding. They just need to make sure that they also work to create the clarity around what their background is, what the nature of the services and the education is that they're delivering. And so when it comes to, for example, your online services or your website, right? We kind of walked through what some of the typical website protections are, but I really recommend, like, if you've got a sales page or, some people have a really like long, depending on what their services are, it might be a long form sales page, might be a short form, but I like to see disclaimers on that page very close to the purchase button. Maybe it's right below it. You should have terms of purchase as well, which are, for anybody listening, like, the check the box style. I have read and agreed to the terms of purchase, right? It's like iTunes or any of the main ones you see online where you have to actively check the box. That's a click wrap, right? So again, when earlier we were talking about click wrap versus browse wrap, click wrap, you actually have to take an action to acknowledge the terms. That's why it's called a click wrap, right? So clicking and either clicking through to the terms, clicking and acknowledging the terms, like taking some active action versus just scrolling and browsing is really important from the standpoint of achieving constructive notice, which is also why and that has to be at or immediately before the point of checkout, meaning you don't want somebody to be able to get to your purchase button on your online website without first acknowledging the terms. Like if they haven't acknowledged, and whatever system you're using, like, there's all kinds of functionality built into websites depending on what plugins, what apps you're using to, do the checkout system. You want to make sure that they literally can't push the button purchase or whatever without checking that box. And if they do try, they get an error message. They have to agree to the terms and conditions, the terms of purchase. So, but then right below that, especially if it's, like, let's say you're coaching people in business and it's mindset around, creating more earnings or getting better at sales. If you're doing anything in the financial world, having that earnings and income disclaimer language very close to the point of checkout is really important. If it's other stuff, if it's, let's say it's not financial related, having an appropriate disclaimer that says, I'm not a medical doctor. This is not medical advice. It's not psychological advice. It's not psychiatry. It's not psychotherapy. It's none of those things. It's coaching and it's information and education, or however you describe it. But to be very clear, at the point of checkout, and then again, once somebody's inside your services, you can do that in different ways, right? Like I was talking about with Heather, the disclaimer inside of a booklet or a download or, a digital offering. You just want to make sure it's clear, that it's legible. It's not buried in small print somewhere. If you're going live and you're talking to a group live or doing live trainings online, you could kick it off at the start, like do your typical intro and just say, as a reminder, I'm not a medical professional. This is not psychotherapy. This is, have a little brief thing that you say each time. And then just remind people, this is information and educational only. It's just for, general support or whatever, however you want to describe what it is that you're doing, but do it in a way that's consistent, that's clear, because you really have to think about what is in the mind of the consumer of my services. Yeah.
Right. Because I get asked that often when people, they're like, are you an MD or a PhD? And I'm like, okay. I don't want to rebrand and put PhD at the end of everything, right? But I'm like,
right.
Okay. So I tend to announce that. So the other two are, number one, in terms of contracts, as a mentorship versus a coach or consultant, are the terms pretty much the same in expectations, or are they different? And then the last question is the non-refundable notice of digital informational products that once they download it, they can't.
Right, your refund policy.
Right. So can you elaborate on that? Because I did buy your package and I looked through it. Not quite sure that one was in there from what I saw.
Oh, okay, awesome. So are you inside of the website protection package?
It's not open right now.
Oh.
Whatever you did at the end of the year, I went and bought it all.
Okay, I'll go look, right? And let's touch base via email again on this. I'll go look it up and see. Thank you for letting me know that. So a couple things. One, in regards to the client services. So it sounds like you consider your services more like mentorship. Is that how you described them versus coaching, consulting? And talk to me about how you see the difference.
Well, that's what I was asking you, because to me, I like mentoring, even though some of my business mentors are trying to push me into the life coach type arena. And I can do that, but to me, it's so saturated, so I don't like using the word.
Got it. It's just, so is it just about the terminology? Like it feels better to be called a mentor and think of yourself as mentoring?
Well, it's more about the contracting. Should the terms of service and the contracts read the same, whether it's mentoring, coaching, or consultant?
Got it. It's a matter of preference primarily. I mean, when I think about mentoring, I would have no problem with the contract saying coaching or mentoring. Again, the issue becomes, how do you create the most clarity in the mind of the consumer? Are they going to relate to the word mentoring and know what that entails? And part of it is how you describe the services, right? So if we're talking about terms of purchase online, right, depending on what the services entail, there's a whole variety of things that would need to be covered in those terms. So just as an example, to walk you through what I ask people about if they're selling services online is it a group service? Is it a one-on-one service, right? If it's a group service, you've got a whole bunch of things to think about. One is you need to have provisions that allow you to remove people from the group. The number of times I've worked with clients where they end up with a stinker inside one of their groups, it's unbelievable, right? But business is a game of numbers. And, and I use this just as an example, but if you think that, think of the population at large, probably somewhere between 3, 5, 7% of people either have mental disorders, they've got personality disorders, whatever. All it takes is for somebody that's problematic to end up inside of one of your group coaching programs, and you're going to have a hard time managing the group. And so, there's clauses that would allow you to control the communication within the group and set rules and boundaries around that. A clause that allows you to remove somebody from the group if they're causing problems and interfering with other people's experiences. There's going to be a data scraping provision. You don't want somebody getting into a group that you've worked really hard to cultivate and build. And think of how many people have an established Facebook group. Like I think of my friend Alina Vincent. She's got 32,000 people inside of her Facebook group. You don't want somebody jumping into that group and doing a bunch of data scraping behavior, which is which people do. People do this, especially if you are basically getting the names and lists of people inside the group, their contact information, and then targeting them in other ways online to invite them into their services. Like, I know this about you because you're in Alina's group, and now I'm going to go target you for my coaching and my support services over here, whether it's a lookalike Facebook audience for targeting, which I know is allowed, but it goes way beyond that, like people doing direct outreach and basically capitalizing on the fact that somebody already did the work to bring the type of people that they want to serve together in one place, right? And so there's a whole bunch of things that you have to think about depending on what you're doing inside of those services and how you're delivering the coaching, the mentoring, the consulting, whatever you call it. If you have another online forum, basically any forum where third parties can communicate, create some risk for your business, depending on how you manage that, depending on what the rules are. So there's a variety of things that you would want to see inside of a very well-built, terms of purchase, which then covers all of the services that you're selling online. And one of those things is also going to be the refund policy, which you asked, right? So the refund policy shows up inside there, and that's going to let people know. So the way that I've built my terms of purchase for clients is that the services are described up top. And let's say they've got 5 or 6 offerings online, which a lot of people do build up to. Like maybe they have a premier coaching group. Maybe they've got a membership offer. Maybe they've got, some digital downloads or pre-recorded courses. You'd have each of those described under their own bullet point in the services section. And then just a couple paragraphs down, you've got a refund policy section that specifically spells out the refund policies related to each of those services, right? So it's very, very clear. If somebody pops into those terms of purchase, they understand like, oh yeah, this is what I bought and here's the refund policy. And they would know, is it 7 days? There's no refunds once they get it and download it, it's all access and that's it, so you spell that out in the terms of purchase. But I'll look, and if you got the website protection package, whether it's the regular version or it's the workshop version, I'd be happy to reach out and either give you a little support or answer questions or make sure that you're pointed in the right direction. I think, let's see, and I can't see his name who just joined the call. I think I recognize the face. Jonathan, there we go, is behind the bubble. Jonathan, I think, is just inside my website protection package. Hi, Jonathan. How are you? Welcome.
Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, happy to see you. So Dr. Denise, was that helpful? Is there something additional that I can answer for you?
Nope, that was it. You covered it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. You're welcome. Great to connect with you. So welcome to Jonathan. I also see that Troika's been on the call with us for a little bit. Troika, did you have a question or anything that you...
I do. And I didn't have the question until Denise brought it up.
Okay.
Wait, hold on one second, because someone is calling me and I just have to tell them I'll call them right back. Susan, I'm on another call. Let me call you right back.
All right, no problem.
Thank you. Okay, so I am in the process of setting up a paid membership.
And Troika, remind me what you do. I know we've crossed paths before. Remind me what work you do.
Well, I do a lot of things. This will be in content to my spiritual.
Okay.
Very metaphysical and stuff. I have a lot of people that have been following me for, like 20 years. And some come in and some come out. I've been doing a free twice a month call where we do, spiritual work and stuff like that, and people can ask questions. So, but that's totally free. So I want to take some of these people further, and I want it to be a membership, and there'll be 3 levels of it, so much per month, blah, blah, blah. I never thought of, gosh, what if I get somebody crappy that's ruining it for people? And how do I gracefully and legally get rid of them?
Totally. It's a great question. And unfortunately, it's one that comes up so often once people are already busy doing the group work, right? So a couple things. One is some of what I just covered with Dr. Denise, right? You have solid terms in place at the point of purchase, which become the contract, become the terms that they agree to in order to join. And that way the rules are spelled out beforehand. For people that do it really well, I call it a terms of purchase sandwich. The buyer is exposed to the terms of purchase at the point of checkout, and then once they're inside the course or the membership or whatever they purchased, it's, hey, welcome, here's how you get started, and then a little PS. If you have any questions, here's a link back to your terms of purchase related to the program, right? And that way there's no doubt that they've been exposed to the rules. The other thing you can do is if you're hosting, depending on where this membership lives, right? Let's say, and a lot of people do this, they might deliver a live monthly call or a couple calls a month, or they have a resource center, but they also have some forum component like a Facebook group or something that looks like a Facebook group. You're also going to want some of those same rules that show up in your terms of purchase in your house rules that should be posted inside of your forum. So if it's Facebook, you want to have that be a document or something that's posted inside the Facebook group so that when people get in there, it's pinned to the top. It says, welcome, here's the rules of the road, here's what you can and can't do to participate appropriately or whatever, right?
Yeah, I've seen how Alina does that on hers.
Totally.
Yeah.
So you want to have that to cover your basis for the group as well, but you don't want inconsistencies between the two, right? So they purchase, they have terms of purchase that apply to that. You want those rules to be consistent with what gets posted inside the forum itself so that you don't have any question about what the rules are. And you can have additional things, like there'd be, kind of some policy things and the way the group is run that might show up in the Facebook rules that are not going to be in your terms of purchase.
Yeah.
So
what the membership is going to be exclusive online telephone. I use Instant Telus. I use Instant Telus Seminar.
Got it. So it's like they call in. It's a conversation or coaching
so we can
over the phone.
we can all talk and stuff like that. So that it's going to be class. It's going to be situations like that for just the club members, and it's going to be some drip content that's written. But one of the calls that they're going to get, I'm calling it support and share, where they can ask their questions about anything, not just a topic, or if they're having problems, they can say that on the call,
like
and
get some spot coaching or something.
Well, or the rest of us will support them, if they need prayer work or something like that. That's the one that, listening to Dr. Denise, I'm thinking, well, that could be a problem there, because what if somebody is a hog and just wants to take over and be,
It happens. So a couple things around that is one is
or they're kind of abusive or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how to set up a rule or regulation to say, if you're a jerk, you're getting booted,
Yeah. I mean, a couple ways. One, it has to do with your management of the call and the group itself. And you always want your written policies, your legal documents, your enrollment conversations to enforce. Like, you want all of those touch points to be consistent, right? Which also means when you're having an enrollment conversation or when you're doing your live calls, you can remind people, like, be sure to check out this link. These are the rules of the road. This place is for, respectful communication only. If you're a jerk, you're going to be removed from my services. Like, it's just not tolerated. Right. So part of that, and, that might be hard for somebody who does spiritual work to say that. I get it, because I support.
It's very sensitive.
It is. I support a lot of heart-centered entrepreneurs, but the reality is that in order to do your work effectively, you have to have that support and structure in place, right?
Definitely.
You want to be connecting with people who are going to allow you to do your best work and not cause problems for you. And it's part of my job to coach my clients on this. Like, they either need to get with the game and play by the rules, or they shouldn't participate in your particular group. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's maybe up-leveling some skills around the group management and being very direct. And especially if you've got somebody who's a hog or is being a little bit disrespectful, being able to handle that on the spot and either redirect them or have them get off the call. And I don't know, like, using the kind of telesummit or the whatever you called it, teleseminar.
Instant Teleseminar is the name of the company.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like Zoom, only without cameras.
Are you able to remove somebody on your side?
I can press one little button and they are gone. And I've had to do that a few times with the free ones.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be so, and I do it sometimes if they're talking, and using that option, and they're getting way off base, or they're getting into really negative politics or something that I don't allow.
Yeah.
I'll just drop their call and I'll go, oh, looks like they were looks like their call dropped or something like that.
Can I give you some feedback on that?
I don't have to do it too often. I've been doing this for 3.5 years, and I've only maybe booted someone twice.
No, I get it. And it's good that you don't. My preference and for my clients would be to directly address it for the benefit of other people on the call. One, they're going to respect you for managing the room and the space. And two, it will let people know, like, these are just not areas we go into.
Oh, I do that when I can get a word in edgewise. These people they do a monologue and they don't even take a breath, and there's no way for me to,
Can you mute them? Can you mute them?
I can mute them. Sometimes
I would do,
sometimes I mute them.
Would mute them and say, look, we're going to put a pause on this. I've muted so-and-so. Here's where we're getting off base, or I'd like to redirect the call to go this way. Because here's the thing about that. It's such a hard scenario, and it is up to you, especially for people that are in a membership service where they're paying for the service.
Yeah, the paying is going to be totally different.
Yeah, really important to manage that. But, it just takes having to face that a few times, and you'll develop systems and skills that feel good to you. But again, the point that I was making with Dr. Denise, which is just so important in what any of us do, is this point about clarity. Are you making the rules clear? Is it clear for everybody that's participating what's going on and why it's happening? And, that's the goal. Troika, back to your question about, and I don't know, like, with the membership stuff, was it similar to disclaimers and language? I forget. Do you have stuff on your website that's already covering you in this regard?
I I have policies that have been written up. See, I sell physical products as well as services.
Got it. Okay.
So mainly my policy statement, and it's a whole big long web page, pertains to product and ordering and refunds.
Right. You've got the physical side. Yeah.
So I haven't done anything like that. And until this moment, I never thought of writing out rules and regulations for the membership. I've been so focused on what I should give them and what I should charge for each level, and are they getting enough, and am I getting enough, and
absolutely.
I haven't thought about the rules, but I'm glad it came up, because now I'll have to write something out.
Well, and you might find this educational. I'm still going to drop my website protection package. That's the workshop version. The main version is there too, and I'll grab that link for you. Right. Even so that you can walk through like what the documents are, because there's a little bit of a summary on my site. In case that's helpful, because you do have like these two sides of your business, the product base, right? So you're going to have like shipping policies and return policies and disclaimers related to the use of those products. But then with the information side of your business, you have to think about that in a whole different way, right? It's very different than a product-based business. So you need protection on both sides. Do you have a privacy policy? Do you have website terms and conditions, right? I'm not talking about just like shipping and refund policies.
No,
for the
not
physical
really.
Products.
Not really. I do have I do have the just standard one sentence. We use cookies. We do not sell your information. Blah blah blah.
So for most information businesses, it's not nearly enough. Even a lot of the free templates that I see out there are really terrible at fitting and supporting the types of businesses that I serve. You might just check it out. If you have questions, I'm happy to, answer some additional questions as you get into looking at that. But you definitely, the same things that I walked through with Dr. Denise and her website, you would need as well, because of the type of coaching and information support that you provide through your work, right? It's the same rules.
Yeah, and I am redoing my website, so this is perfect.
Oh, good. Yeah, so check out, especially the second link that has a full description of the website protection package. Look through that, because there's bullet points on there, like, key mistakes to avoid, introduction to your core documents, right? How, like, best practices around those documents. What if somebody steals your content? A whole bunch of stuff that people don't. Yeah, that don't
dealing of content. Actually, I want to trademark my name.
Oh yeah. Well, and separately, I'm happy to talk about trademarks. I want to make sure, because we're going past the noon hour, and I know that Isla
and I don't want to be a hog.
No, that's okay. It's a great question. I would say go read through the website protection package stuff, because that is going to apply to the type of work you're doing on the information side of your business.
All right. I have one other little question about your package. I know that we've got some events coming up that you participate in, JVology and Collaborate and stuff like that. Yep. Are you going to be having a special on those?
You know what? So the first link the website protection package workshop, that is the same special I offered at that event, the JVology events last year. That's actually how I developed that particular offer. Okay. It's an amazing deal. It's the only way people get that deal is it's either at one of those events or they show up to this call and they have a need for website support and I offer it. But it's not like nobody can go to my website and find that. They have to have the direct link. So check that out. That's the workshop version of the same package. The benefit to that is that it's, like I said, it's 4 or 5 hours of training, and there's it's all indexed, meaning that, for somebody that's going through the recording, you can click right through to the point of the training if you have a specific question and go right to that. So I've tried to make it as, consumer friendly as possible. Thanks, Troika. Check that out and let me know if you have any other questions. I know Isla's got a question, and Jonathan, I assume you've got a question. So I'm going to open it up to Jonathan, and then I'll get to Isla's question if she remains on the call.
Thank you, Heather.
Yeah, it's great to connect, Troika. Hi, Jonathan.
Hey, Heather. Yeah, look, I literally just saw that you were on. I'm at work, so I thought I would just see if you're still here and pop in and literally just say hi.
Oh, so, I'm so glad you did. And remind me, because are you in New Zealand?
I'm in New Zealand, yeah.
So what time is it there for you?
It is just 9:05 on Tuesday morning.
Oh, got it. So you're morning. Okay, good. Well, good to connect with you.
Yes, nice to see you. And I'm still working my way through the workshop. I will get to you, and my question's basically going to be, okay, being based in New Zealand, how do I globalify my policies?
Totally.
Well, and just work my way through that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, pop back into the Facebook group. You can tag me there. You can email me, like whatever's convenient for you. My documents are used by people around the world, right? So they are designed for people doing international business, depending on if you've got like a strong group of consumers in New Zealand. Like clearly I don't know New Zealand law. Like there might be some things that we could, get you connected with a local attorney who would help with, like, for example, a dispute resolution provision or something that's really appropriate for New Zealand. But outside of that, what people need is clear contractual language that lets them know what's going on, what the rules are, right? So, but reach out whenever you can, and I'm happy to try to support you however I'm able to.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So glad that I'm here. And just from what I've gone through so far, I really like your whole approach to, okay, let's actually make this useful for people so that if they do read it, they're actually getting the education as well as the information.
Yes. Well, so I'm grateful to hear that. Let me know if you're going through the training, the recording of the workshop, and you have any specific questions. I like the Facebook group because other people can benefit from that. And I've got several, but I'm mostly directing, people who are purchasing after the fact into one. So, happy to support you once you have a chance to go through that.
Cool.
Good. Okay. Nice to connect with you, Jonathan. Alrighty. Talk to you later.
Cheers. Okay.
Okay, Isla.
Yeah, awesome. So we had an employee that worked with us. She started working with us in March, and she was let go at the end of May, but we then gave her a month of severance. So her last day on our payroll was June 30th. We just got notification last week that she's filing for unemployment, and we are her last employer. Except we do know that she started her own business. And so my CEO asked me to ask you about that as well, because I did a lot of research on it, and technically because she made over a certain amount of money 2 quarters in a row, she qualifies for unemployment in the state of Tennessee. But then there's this other weird rule here that says that people who own their own business are not eligible for unemployment. And so we don't know if that's something that she's disclosing at the unemployment office, that she has formed her own business and she has her own website and social media and all the stuff she's offering consulting services. But because she hasn't worked for anyone else, we're the ones who are kind of getting the bill. And so I was just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, and just to be clear, employment law is generally state-based law, right? So I don't know employment law in Tennessee, although I've practiced some employment law here. Most of my issues are around, most of the ways that I support clients are with business formation, lots of contract stuff. Employment law, like it probably kicked off a hearing. Like, are you on a schedule to have a hearing or something at some point?
Well, they gave us 2 options. They said we could either dispute it, or if we chose to dispute, then they would set a hearing. Otherwise, we're expected to pay, and as long as she qualifies and as long as she's making under a certain amount of money a month, then she will continue to qualify until, I don't know how long it actually works, but
yeah. Well, and if you feel like there's information that she may not be disclosing, I mean, assuming that there's no penalty involved, I would just dispute it so that you have the opportunity to show up and present information, to the unemployment office. I've represented early in my career. I've taken people through that process. And, some are pretty good. Like some do a great job of handling things fairly, hearing information from the employer. So if you've got information that shows that she's employed, that she's, working or generating income or has created her own business, that would probably be helpful for them to know if they don't already know that. So I'd go ahead and go through that process, because otherwise you're just defaulting in a scenario where maybe nobody has all the information they need.
Right. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Good luck. That's tough.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Kathleen, I see that your hand is raised. Do you have another question here that I can support you with?
I was just making I was going to make a comment about, or a question related to the issue of notification that you were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And my thing is, I watch a lot of alternative health content on YouTube, and some of the sites, they will put a written disclaimer at the beginning of their broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't hear that mentioned when you were discussing that. In addition to like them saying it, they will say, well, I have to put this up for legal purposes. And then they
Yep. No, and you're great. That's a great point. And, mostly what I was talking about is going live. You're talking about like a pre-recorded something, somebody's going to post on YouTube or share later. You definitely can insert that slide. So for example, I've seen attorneys do it where they're populating educational videos and they'll have a disclaimer that says, I'm an attorney licensed in whatever state, but this is not legal advice. If you have a legal question, consult with an attorney in your state or whatever. So that's a great option. That's also a good point for anybody on the call that's doing like a pre-recorded course or populating their YouTube channel.
They do it on live calls because of the issue that they're alternative health, and they can get in real bad trouble if they don't make it clear that they're not acting as a doctor.
Totally. If you're doing a Zoom or you've got some way to do a slideshow, certainly you can do that. Depending on how you're going live, like to YouTube, you may not have the functionality of having a slide, but you could certainly build that in, or again, provide a verbal disclaimer as well.
Well, I just thought I would mention that because I have seen it quite a bit on some of. Not all of the people do it, but some of them who have, been doing it for years and years. I mean, some of them have were on radio and now they're on the video. So they do the video, they record their podcast, but it's videoed too.
Right. Yeah. No, there's lots of ways that we can.
Always want to make sure that whoever's watching it, they understand.
Totally. Nope. It's a great point.
And I suggest that because again, that would be something someone could read if they can't hear it totally. Yeah. But you also got to realize the other thing, although you got to understand that a lot of deaf people, you have to keep language simple for them, not because they're stupid, but because written language is not their first language. Mm-hmm. Sign language is their first language.
Yep.
And now a lot of their classes are really taught in sign language, whereas like in the 80s and stuff, they taught it in sign English, which is basically showing English in a sign form.
Got it.
And that's different than ASL, which is its own language.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that input, Kathleen. I appreciate that. Dr. Denise, I see that your hand is raised.
Yes. Okay. So, can you address, well, real quick? Do you work with people establishing online entrepreneurs, particularly online, offshore businesses, or can you direct to a reputable?
And do you mean for setting up an offshore business?
Yes.
I could probably get you connected to somebody if I knew a bit more about what your goals were, where you're, if you've got a preference, like.
I can email that to you.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, just drop me an email, and the questions I would ask is it, like some of my clients are super nomadic. They don't really have a home base, right? And so I have some clients that, you know, set up their businesses in Wyoming, even though they don't live in Wyoming and they don't even live in the US, but they need a place to be their home for tax purposes, mail, all of that stuff. So, you know, partly like, what are your goals? Where do you live? What do you think you can accomplish with that? Or what are you hoping to accomplish? And then we can potentially get you connected to somebody who does that type of work.
Okay. And the legal difference between using education, information, and entertainment, and the disclaimers. And could you also address about using music when we're doing our recordings, be it or live?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, you know, sometimes the information education / entertainment makes a difference, especially if you're talking about like getting a trademark registration, right? Because things are categorized. There's trademark classes, and in the descriptions when you apply for a trademark, you might need to identify that stuff.
With information.
Yeah, well, I mean, partly it's just how you think of your services, right? If you offer entertainment and you feel like saying that it's entertainment and information purposes only, a lot of people who do live events will say that, like the entertainment function, especially if they're, you know, hosting other experts to come in and help share or whatever. There is some entertainment function in their offerings. Otherwise, you know, a lot of my clients are informational and educational. That's just the nature of their services, is to inform and educate. But, you know, if it's entertainment where you create a ton of video content, or your podcast you think is in the entertainment category because of the way that you present or whatever, it's, you know, it's just partly how you want to label it.
Okay. Great.
In regards to music, people have to be very careful if they're using music. Like, basically the rule is if you're creating content for your business, you're creating educational information that you're disseminating, you don't want to use copyrighted music. So on YouTube, for example, I've had clients where they hosted a seminar or a workshop, and they went to intermission and played music on the internet or something and it gets recorded on the Zoom recording, and then they upload that later to YouTube, and it gets flagged for copyright infringement because of that music being recorded in intermission. So you want to be really aware of, are you recording it? Is it being broadcast to the public? If it's copyrighted music, there are ways that stuff gets tracked online, and you can get flagged and either have your account shut down, or you can, you know, be put in timeout, or you just are not able to disseminate the content.
I'm flagged it on Instagram, but I wasn't sure what's the workaround, you know, so.
The workaround is to only use music that you have a license to use. Right? So you can go to sites where you can license the music, where you just pay for either a subscription or you pay for use of a particular set of songs. So for example, when I launched my podcast, I had to go to one of those sites to get a little blurb of music that I use at the beginning and the end. And you just make sure that you have a license to use that you've paid for that, and then you can use it for purposes. I mean, so long as it's licensed for commercial use, meaning that you can use it as part of your business purposes. You have to be really careful when you're looking at licensing language, because sometimes it doesn't allow commercial use, right? So you have to be aware of like how you're using it and whether the language permits that.
Okay. And what about using it like in a format like this, where it's a private Zoom, right? But there's music being played, but then you're going to repurpose it for sale. Like, so is that illegal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so you would not want, and for copyrighted music, yes, if you have a license to use that, you just have to be clear whether a license allows that type of repurposing, allows resale, like bundled part of something else. Or if, you know, it's really about the language. Like, you have to be very clear on what the licensing language says.
Okay, and here's one for you. What if it's been mixed by a DJ? Like, there's only pieces of the songs that...
Oh, got it. Yeah, that gets into... So you're talking about like derivative works when it comes to copyright issues. I don't know that there's a bright line rule. I don't do a lot of infringement defense work, right? I would just say be very careful. Sometimes I think that ends up being okay. Sometimes it's not, depending on how recognizable it is. You know what I mean? I don't know how that stuff gets flagged online, if there's functionality that's going to catch it if you're using little blips. You know, again, the easiest thing is going to be either creating your own or licensing music where you've paid for a license, because you want to be able to show proof. It's a little bit like using images on your website, right? People used to just take images from wherever and not think about it. And now a lot of people are understanding, like, oh, I can't do that anymore. I actually have to have a license, or I have to go to one of the free sites that allows images, you know, for commercial use, even without payment. But you've basically registered for an account. You have to be able to track and show, here's the license, like you save the language. It's, you know, you don't want to cross those lines, because copyright infringement can really get people into big trouble.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, great question. I know it's a lot to think about, and it's a bummer when it comes to good music and you want to have that be part of your event or whatever. But yeah, you do have to be careful with the recordings and how you're going to share them and repurpose them. Okay. Yeah, great questions. All right, folks. Well, it is 12:20. I've got 2 little kids that are still fending for themselves upstairs. I have no idea if my son even attended math today, so I'm going to go check on that. My husband is an essential employee, and so he's gone, and it ends up being a wild ride here at home. But grateful to see all you today. Be in touch if I can offer any additional support. Denise, I'll go double check on your purchases from the end of last year. And if you have any questions, obviously feel free to email me and we can connect that way, or next month's call. All right. Good to see you. Yep. Bye-bye. Bye, Troika.
Bye everybody.
Bye,
Thank
Troika. You. Good to see you.
Bye-bye.